Welcome to Bots and Beyond, your weekly dose of all things automation, mixing up end user, vendor and consultant experience to create your go-to podcast for bot-related insights. I am your host, Wayne Butterfield. Hello everybody and welcome back to Bots and Beyond. Great to have you back listening this week for episode 13, can you believe? Another great episode lined up as always. We've got a fantastic guest, but it is my great pleasure to introduce Lasse Rindom from Baker Tilly. So hello.
Hi, and thank you, Wayne.
As is customary, a little bit of intro from yourself. So who you are, of course, we have introduced you slightly. What you do, which would be really interesting. Also why you do it.
Well, my name is Lasse Rindom, of course, as I said, or Lasse Rindom, whatever you want to say. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Baker Tilly Danmark. I have been working with automation basically my whole career. I've been interested in finding ways to, in the beginning it started maybe with, Excels and taking things out of systems and making some smart moves in Excel with some Visual Basic for applications or formulas, whatever you needed to do. And then it just moved on from there, getting into some SQL, getting into some RPA and just expanding from that position. And then I've been working at ISS just before joining Baker Tilly, where I had a global responsibility for the technical side of the whole implementation, meaning I had the responsibility for the solution, for the technical setup, for the framework, and for the vendor selection as well. So I've been doing a whole suite there of automation on a company with 500,000 employees. Then now in my new role in Baker Tilly Denmark, I have the responsibility I have been given the mission to automate and optimize, digitalize the SMB market, which is no small feat, I'd say. But it's actually the mission I wanted and I asked them to give me. So I'll get back to that, why I think that's important. I tend to always ask the questions. I have a master in history, actually, where I always did the long lines and the long, what you call sociological historical analysis. So that's basically the same approach I'm taking a little bit in the digitalization space, is asking, but why is this different from what we did 10 years ago? And why will this be different in 10 years? And also saying, what is this really all about behind all the buzz and fuss of marketing? And that's basically what I'm doing.
I want to touch on the why. So, you've mentioned that this is something you've been doing for a while. Obviously, if your background's in history versus automation, obviously there is certainly some historic value in looking at the role of automation in the past. But is that the reason why automation is so important to you now, or is it something different?
Well, I think it's twofold, right? Obviously, Chris Rock said in one of his stand-up shows, he said that you are told you can be anything you want to be in this world, but the reality is you can be what you're good at when they're hiring. And what I realized after finishing my master's degree was that I quickly got jobs in the private sector, and I started actually in a salary payroll department of Maersk, and it sort of moved from there. I just kept getting jobs and better opportunities, and I found it intriguing. I was good at math. I was good at logics. I was good at understanding processes and what was going on and why we needed to do things. And it basically just catched on from there. And then I got motivated by sort of, the second thing is getting motivated by making an impact, right? And this is something that affects a lot of people's lives, how we optimize it and how we digitalize things. So for me, this is not just a career choice to get money. This is something I've chosen because I want it to mean something. That's always what it's about for me. It has to mean something. I have to believe it. I usually say that I have to be able to preach it or I won't work with it. So that's still the thing for me. I'm preaching this, and if I can't preach it because I don't believe it, then I will probably not be doing it anymore.
Excellent. No, I really like that idea. And I guess that kind of brings us on to a little bit more is you asked for a mission. You asked in your new role to lead the digitization of the SMB. Why is that important to you?
Well, a couple of years ago, I was employed at another company where we moved RPA with Foxtrot, which is now Nintex Foxtrot RPA, into the market. I've since moved on from that tool and started working with other tools because I think Nintex to some extent didn't invest the money in it that I hope they would. But I when I was in that role, I started working with Baker Tilly as a partner actually, and getting into meeting some of their clients. And I just realized in some of those pitches where I was out of my comfort zone, and these guys were sitting there, but hey, investing this kind of money, how will that change for me, and what will it change for me, and why can't I just hire 2 guys instead, part-time to do the job instead of buying your RPA software. And I realized that I was out of my depth in that pitch, and I didn't, there was something here I didn't understand, something here I hadn't seen before. And as often is with me, when I meet something I don't understand, I tend to only very initially being arrogant and saying, oh, that's because they're stupid. But then I go back and I'm really annoyed at it, really annoyed. And I'm like, I need to understand this. I need to work it. I need to make it work. So the question I'm asking right now was basically, I did that a year ago at ISS. I said to myself, okay, next mission down the line should be to go to this SMB market. And I'd like to do it with Baker Tilly because I knew them. And I knew they had a really growing brand also in Denmark. So I really liked their eagerness and their strategic outview as well. But basically saying that if low code, cloud-based, right, is not for the SMB market, then what is for the SMB market, and what is the benefit of low code cloud-based if it's not for that market? Because this, having cloud-based means you can do it like what I like to call, not put in basket, but add to cart, right? Add to cart kind of digitalization, right? You can just purchase whatever you need, consumption-based. And low-code means it should be fairly cheap to develop by experienced developers. Really cheap and fast to develop. And all these 2 things, they rhyme on SMBs. But for some weird reason, all these tools, and it goes for almost anyone I talk to in the market, any software vendor, they always have this like, oh, you have to pay, 40,000 euros up front for the initial base. You have to pay 50,000 euros. Basically saying they're making it so difficult to get started and get just on board with it, that you can't get to the SMBs, right? And then you're not making the transformation because, the SMBs, they're the depth of society and the marketplace. This is where, you make the real impact. The big enterprises are cool. You can make some superficial things there as well. I know some big banks in Denmark have teams of 50 people doing, moon-based stuff. But this is where you really change people's lives, right? So if you mean business with RPA, if you mean business with BI, with BPMs, workflows, low-code apps, whatever you need, right? Whatever you have, right? If you mean business with it and really believe that cloud-based low-code matters, then it should be something that works for the SMB market.
Great. And obviously you've spoken about kind of low code, cloud enabled. Now, I presume we're not just talking about RPA here. So, what's the kind of tech stack that you think is there and that should and could be utilized by the SMB market to make that meaningful change that you're looking at?
Oh, well, obviously, I'd say the tech stack that we've decided to work with in my company is the right tech stack at the moment, because I've set the strategy. So with a fair amount of arrogance, I'd say that it is important. I think that BI analytics is a key part. RPA is an important tool to have for what cannot be done with other tools. So as I'm starting to say, RPA is the best of the worst solutions. So you need to have it ready at hand so that you can always fix whatever, right? That's the point. But you should not necessarily start with that. Then BPMs and workflows, obviously, that's something you really need to work on. And low-code apps, and on an occasional level also basically just Excel, automation still, some places. We also do ERP counseling and implementation on Business Central because sometimes a digital strategy is not about all these between system changes, but actually about changing base. So we do some of that as well, counseling and assisting with technical insights in procurement sessions for our SMB market customers as well. But what I mean with saying that low-code cloud-based is just that this is what's being pitched right now, right? Is that this is what is supposed to make it easy to get on board with it, right? I've had talks with also some vendors saying that, okay, you can buy my low-code system, but you need to pay, 15,000 euros a year to learn it and get access to learning it. I'm like, well, then it's not low-code if it's that difficult to learn, right? It has to be easy to get started. So for me, this is about, setting the right stack of finding a way to work with tools that are easy, cheap, quick to build, easy frameworks, and that can move between systems. That's the key thing. That's the key thing for me. Finding that holistic understanding of what digitalization is and data transformation is. We have a BPO department in Baker Tilly, where we handle upwards of 500 clients, their accounting functions. And what I've said as my goal, because I always say we should aim for the hero. We should not look at the sick person and define what we want to be. We should look at the hero and say, this is what we want to get to. And I say that we've been a success here, a really big success, if we can avoid Excel in anything cyclical or, repetitive, anything we do on a monthly basis or returning jobs. If we can avoid Excel in any of that, then we've been a success. Then we've transformed it. We've connected the systems and the data flows in the right way. And we've removed manual work, except for, control, these ad hoc controlling measures and the things that really need a human interaction.
That is quite the mission, right? I mean, I work and have worked speak with finance departments on a regular basis, and Excel is an absolute core tool within their toolkit for, not for any real valid reason, just as you say, to cover the shortfalls of the actual systems that they're using. So definitely would say that is hero-esque if you can help a finance team in removing Excel as a requirement. So hats off and very keen.
No, but that's slaying the dragon, right? That's the dragon we need to slay. What I'm saying is that we should not kill Excel. Excel should still be there, of course. But a lot of people are saying, how can we transform things? And they want to talk at processes, and then they add RPA or they add whatever. Seriously, go to your finance department, ask them, what kind of models do you have in Excel that you keep working with at month's end all the time? And let's say they have these 3, 4, 5 different ones, especially in controlling departments. And they pull out this data, and then they pull out this data, and then they run a code or whatever they do, and then they get, the deviances. And they have to do that all the time, even though there might not be a deviance, right? Listen, this should be done with a BI tool. Put that into a BI reporting and have the report and notify you if there's anything to be notified about. So if there is any deviances in these standard analyses, right, these standard reports, then let the BI tool tell you, and don't let it tell you anything if there's nothing.
Yeah.
So, but no one does that. No one goes back and says, what Excel models do we have? Because I don't know why, actually. I think that's where you have tons of opportunities just there, looking at what's actually today being done in Excel, which is, the manual of work of today, right?
Absolutely. Now, when you're thinking of digitizing the SMB, I presume, although finance is quite an important part, are there any other kind of hotspots and areas that you look for in the SMB? That has historically been a bit of a hotspot for automation or digital transformation.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think I'll be honest this time, or I'll tell something that I've been wondering how to say, actually. But I think that some of the issues, some of the reasons why we are talking so much about, accounting, finance, back office, is because they are the only ones who, they have the money. The CFO has money, and you go directly to him, and often the CIO is also below the CFO. So the CIO has to sort of impress the CFO with something he does for his department. And then we sort of focus around accounting all the time. But this is not where typical companies make their money. They make their money, in a front line on operations, right? And we have a lot of these customer service things, that attended bots. Wherever you talk to anyone about attended bots, they're always saying, I always ask them, okay, what's the use case for an attended bot? And they say customer service. I'm like, yes, but what else, right? I've never seen attended bots be a real big thing changing the world, really changing the world, maybe changing some companies with huge customer service departments. All right. But basically I'll say, so if you're doing that with RPA, you're doing it wrong. But my point being that I think if you go to operations, I look a little bit more about what's being produced. You can do warehouse inventory, you can do interacting with customer applications directly for telling them how the production is going with whatever they're waiting for directly. Those kind of integrations, you can also do that. You can do low code apps for your driving people. If you have everyone who's like outgoing, they need these apps to interact with the base, which is the base systems. And that's where low-code apps come in. You can make easy front ends on a mobile application. You don't have to pay tons of money for that. You can build it quite fairly easy, right? Also for doing warehouse inventory. Instead of people taking the paper, going out to the warehouse, noting down what they need and going back to the office saying, we need to buy more of this stock. We're out of stock on this and this. We'll make an app instead so they can do it in 2 minutes. Takes no time to develop that form. It's quite easy. And then it just runs straight into your Business Central or your C5 or whatever you have, right? There's a lot of places where we can actually do things if we dare to ask a little bit broader questions and ask about what kind of systems do you in general work with across your organization, and also taking the time just to take an overview of the business model.
And why do you think then, I think you kind of touched upon this earlier on, but just thinking about SMBs. First of all, just let's recalibrate. What would you class as your definition of an SMB, just to really help the kind of audience understand the size of company that you're talking at? Because I guess an SMB can usually range from about 5 people upwards. So it would be good to get your kind of view on the size of an organization that you are looking at when you are thinking SMB digital transformation.
But my definition of an SMB is basically just that. Yeah, 5 people upwards of something with a turnover of 500, 600 million euros, right? But it depends. I know with Baker Tilly in the US is also SMB, market, but they're medium-sized are much bigger than the medium-sized companies in Denmark, obviously. So everything's just a little bit bigger in the US, right?
You've run kind of and been involved in multiple different teams now. You mentioned kind of, Maersk. You've obviously spoke about Baker Tilly. You spoke about, using, Nintex, RPA, Box, etc., back in the past. Is there anything that you replicate? And is there anything that when you start a new role, you completely change? You're like, right, I've been there, I've done that, it didn't work, I'm not going to do that again. Have you got those things in your kind of work toolbox, which are, these are the things I'm definitely going to do. These are the things that I've tried and I won't do again.
This is a path of enlightenment, digitalization, right? So what I did initially was that, when I moved to ISS, I said, well, now I've been pitching for a while that this should be easy, just start off small and see what gets you. I'm not going to do that again because I saw so many things failing with it and so many people getting just locked in with a vendor for fixing their RPA. That was not the mission I wanted to do. Then secondly, I did, at ISS, I had only the focus on RPA, which I'm now changing, saying that that's not the real solution. We should not just say, now we buy this tool really expensive. If you buy this tool really expensive, you have to make sure it has at least a weekly touch point with other solution stacks. And really, that touch point is extremely important. So you get a full suite, right? Because RPA is not the thing you should start off with. It's the thing you should get to when you've evaluated other solutions. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm always learning, always adapting. I think what I'm replicating is I hope at least, is integrity, right? The aggressive desire to ask questions and to demand that your strategy makes sense on more than just an IT level. So IT is the base. It has to make sense for IT. This is IT. Automation, digitalization is really IT. So much firewalls, so much data, so many tables, systems. This is super IT, but you have to make sure it's always connected to the business model. And that's why I'm really asking these questions all the time. Will this fit our strategy? Can we grow with this? Would this work also in 2 years, right? I actually want this. If this works in 5 years, I'll be happy. I know that probably in 10 years is a lot to ask in this market. But just give me 5 years, right? Then I'll be happy, and I'm really aiming for that. I'm also putting myself on the line for that, and thankfully I have my company with me on that. That we should go on the line with the solutions. We should also, and this is actually a thing. Okay, I don't think a lot of people are doing that. I know some few companies who are doing that, like Digital Workforce, also for a larger enterprise market. But basically saying that, okay, I'm willing to put operations on the table as well, and say, I'll give you a clear OPEX. We'll run your processes at this price.
I think it's a really bold mission, but it doesn't sound like it's the only mission that you're on at the moment. And certainly your kind of LinkedIn presence has grown, I would say, probably since you really joined Baker Tilly. I think you've really upped the ante there. Where's your head at with regards to the use of LinkedIn as a social platform to kind of get your message out there? You think it's a good thing, a difficult thing? Like, just talk to us a little bit about your kind of growth in LinkedIn presence recently. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And what benefits have you seen? I think the audience will be really keen to understand that.
Well, the benefits I've seen is that I'm getting to interact with a lot of really cool, knowledgeable people. I see that some of my posts are starting debates. I can see the reach is quite strong, even though I don't necessarily have some of my posts with only like 30 likes have still reached 10,000 people and have like 25, 35 comments, meaning there's a debate going on. People are seeing it, they're thinking about it, and not necessarily agreeing because maybe they don't dare or whatever, right? Because what I'm doing is I'm trying not to be too generic and see if something bothers me or seems out of place. I just question it, and I question it there because I believe I have people there willing to also engage in that discussion. And I know people are interested in talking beyond the hype, right? Getting beyond the marketing and seeing something real. There's a lot of things, I think in general, you should talk about the issue, not your software solution. Whatever you have on the shelf, people don't care about that. Try to talk about the issue. Also, don't do this like, for your framework, you need this, and the rest we can talk about in a sales discussion. Come on. Everything here is, everyone knows. I've seen tons of pitches from companies doing automation, and they're all kind of generic. They all look quite alike. So maybe you found some really little tweak on your agile framework, but it's kind of the same as everyone else has done, So that's not the point. Just give it out there. Talk about the issue, not the software solution, not the things you have on your shelf, don't hide things that are standard in the market. Be honest and engaging. Do more than just clapping. That's also important, right? Even though I like to clap at people as well, but we should be engaging, and we should also be saying that this doesn't make sense to me. Please explain.
Excellent. And obviously it's gaining you a lot of attention. So thank you. I mean, that's one of the ways that we initially connected. So clearly it's working. With that, I think, a brilliant episode, really good to get those insights, a slightly different flavor on the role of automation and digitization. And, it's not just for big enterprises. And as I mentioned before, there's a great couple of missions that you've set out to achieve.
The digital transformation of the big enterprises is the headache of the small enterprises. And we need to acknowledge that and get there.
Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. Obviously comments always welcome on today's episode. Be as provocative as you want. I'm sure they would be very keen to engage on debates, on his views, of course. And with that, that's the end of Bots and Beyond, and we'll speak to you next week.